Welcome to episode 33 of the Tiger 700 project. In this episode, we're going to finally build the carbon fiber panels of the body. The molds are finished, PVA and parting wax has been applied, so we're ready to start with the panels. You can see here that the gel coat has already been applied, and I did use two colors by tinting the gel coat, and I have used some filleting material to fill in the sharp corners. So we're ready to lay some fabric. The filleting material has hardened, and here I'm sanding it to ensure I have a nice smooth surface to lay the fabric on. Using a variety of pads, my belt sander, and making quick work of it. Vacuuming it up to make sure it's nice and clean. And laying my first layer of carbon fiber using a silver marker. See, I'm laying it down in and trimming it. Doing a lower panel of carbon fiber, but that sharp corner where the white meets the green is too sharp for the carbon fiber. So I'm laying in some 4-ounce fiberglass cloth because that drapes better over that sharp curve. Now I'm using a dry layup method where I cut it, lay it in, and then I actually tack it down with a little bit of Super 77 3M spray adhesive. That all holds it in place. You can see I'm putting carbon fiber on the upper section now. And spraying a little more Super 77, just a little bit to tack it down. This is my first layer of carbon fiber. Now I'm going around the edges with some fiberglass tape. This is 1-inch fiberglass tape, and that adds just a little bit of strength around the edges. That's where it's most likely to crack, and that's why I add that little bit of extra strength. Again, just laying up that first layer of carbon fiber. Now we're on the front. Need to put a bunch of relief cuts in there, just to ensure it lays flat. Make sure everything lays flat. Some places I just used some scrap. It seemed to be an easy way to fill in the sections and make sure it was nice and strong. And using up the little pieces of my carbon fiber. It is expensive after all. Now laying in some more of the 4-ounce fiberglass cloth around those sharp edges, around the headlight. Seemed to be the best way to do this, was just doing it with a lot of little pieces. Then also laying in some carbon fiber where it's flat. Since that's where the headlight goes, there's no reason to fill in the whole area with fiberglass or carbon fiber because I'm going to cut it out anyway. Now vacuuming up before I go on to the second layer of fiberglass and carbon fiber. Again, I'm kind of going alternating layers. I start off, you remember, with one layer with the fiberglass along this really sharp corner here, then a layer of carbon fiber, and now another layer of the fiberglass cloth. So each layer interweaves with the next one. And vacuuming up after each time. Ready for the next layer of carbon fiber. Again, this is a 6-ounce satin weave carbon fiber fabric. Okay, just tacking it down. This is being filmed at about 8x normal speed, so gives you an idea of how long this takes. Laying in that second layer all the way around. Again, using up all my little scraps to fill in all those complicated compound curves. Turning up nice and tight. Again, going around those tight curves with some of the 4-ounce fiberglass fabric. Tacking it in place. By the way, in the background, you can see I've already done the other side of the body. Behind me, you can see it with all the fiberglass in there. It's got the resin in it, along with the ribs. I'll be showing you how to do the ribs here in a moment. So now it's time to lay some resin. I'm using epoxy resin with a medium hardener. It's probably about 70 degrees here in the shop. It's summertime. And just really soaking this. Remember, I've got 2 layers of 6-ounce carbon fiber here. And along that sharp curve, I've got 3 layers of 4-ounce fiberglass. So you really, really, really want to soak it here to the point where you have excess laying on top of the fabric. Should be shiny everywhere. Then what I take is a squeegee, and that helps push it down into the fibers more and allows me to pull up some of the excess. Then use a roller to make sure the layers are really compacted down. That's how you get the strength in the panel. Just went off to mix another batch of the epoxy. Work in small batches. That'll keep it from running away from you and hardening while you're in the middle of a panel. So here I am, again, scraping it with the applicator. Doing it here, pulling up the excess, and then spreading the excess around as well. It helps save on your resin costs. Here I am rolling it. I do this for every batch. Apply it, use a squeegee to pull out the excess, and then roll it, and then mix the next batch. Very last step, take some acetone and wipe down all the edges. Any place you don't want resin or any fabric, now's the time to clean it up. Okay, it's time to make the ribs. I'm cutting the 1/8 inch vinyl foam here. Very simple to cut. I'll put them together to make it a 1/4 inch piece of foam, give myself a little thickness. I'm sanding the edges here to give it a nice bevel for the fabric to lay over. There you can see the bevel. Now I'm marking it about every inch and making little cut reliefs in it to make it more flexible so it'll lay in the curvature of the body. You can see I've made several of them now. Starting to glue them in again with the Super 77. Just tack it down enough so they'll stay. A little bit of minor trimming. And laying it in, you can see how it just sort of really adheres to the shape of the panel. Now going for the fabrics that's going to encapsulate it all. Again, this is the 4-ounce fiberglass fabric. Again, using the Super 77 to lay it down in a dry layup method, and really being careful to ensure that it really adheres around those ribs, very tightly around the edges. You can see how those bevels come in handy now to ensure that fabric is laying down tight and there's no gaps. My cohort in crime just left. And laying it down over the entire panel. Smoothing all down. You've got quite a bit more drapeability, as you can see here on the 4-ounce fiberglass. You can see I don't have to make nearly as many relief cuts. Not as many scraps are going in because it does adhere much better. Much easier to work with. Just patching in a couple of those relief cuts. And one more layer. 2 layers of 4-ounce fiberglass. Again, using that Super 77, just a really light coat of it to lay that fabric down in a dry layup method. If you use too much of the adhesive, it will inhibit the resin from actually soaking through. Here you can see I'm putting on another layer of that fiberglass tape around the edge, again to give it some more strength around the edges. Now it's time to lay down some epoxy resin. You can see when you wet out the fiberglass, you can see the dark carbon fiber below. Just like before, I squeegee out the excess, making sure it's really soaked first, and then squeegeeing out the excess. And then rolling it. Just rinse and repeat. There's no reason to show you the rest of this. Let's move on. This front half of the body is actually made up of 3 pieces. There's the back half, the front cowl, and this little C-shaped piece right here. And the reason you need a separate piece there is because this is where the front control arms come through for the suspension. In other words, the top control arm comes through here, the bottom control arm comes through there, and this is where the rack and pinion steering comes through. So this has to be a removable panel, even in the final body, so I can get the body on and off without completely disassembling the suspension. So this is made to that piece, exactly how I want that panel to look. So once you pull it off, you can see this is the panel, and what I'm going to do is just simply cut along these edges all the way around. And that'll give me an exact fit panel that I can work back into the body. If you take your time cutting out this panel, you'll have an exact match and one that'll fit perfectly when you put it all back together. I have one of the side panels laid in now, along with the ribbing you can see there in the cream colored vinyl foam. That's to stiffen the panel. And I'm getting ready to mold in this piece. You can see it's bolted in down below. So it's ready to be attached to the main piece. Here's what the other side looks like. It's been laid in, but you can also see that I sort of held back on the carbon fiber and the fiberglass that are in there, so you can still see the green gel coat. And this is why. When you bolt the two pieces together, it looks like this. So I've got a gap down in there. You can see the gel coat as well as the crack where the two pieces meet. Now it's a pretty tight crack. It may not look that way in this picture, but it's pretty tight fit there. So first step is to put just a little bit of gel coat in there to cover up the space in there that hasn't quite met all the way through the crack, and to fill that in. And then put about a few layers of carbon fiber on top of that. More carbon fiber than what I put in the rest of the body. This is a stressed area, since you'll be leaning on this getting in and out of the car, so I'm going to put a few extra layers, and finally some ribs. The ribs are first made by creating patterns for how these ribs will fit tightly inside the armrests. Then I made a big slab of carbon fiber, just flat, plain. And I did it right here on the table, just used it as my backing. And just did 4 layers of the carbon fiber. That's 24 total thickness on the carbon fiber. And then use the pattern to cut out the individual ribs. Then once the ribs are made, they are put inside this area to provide much more support. You can see there's one more to go in here, 3 on each side. And here's what it looks like when it's all glassed in. I used epoxy resin with a mixture of 1/4-inch fiberglass strands and Cabosil. 1/4-inch strands give it strength, and Cabosil helps soak up the rest of the epoxy so it doesn't run. And I only did it on one side, but I did it on the other sides as well. So these are in there solid. I've got all my front cowl pieces together now. It's all bolted together. You can see it from the inside here. It's actually sitting on the nose. And you can see the armrests now. Those are completed. This is a piece that of the form that will be coming off. You can see the ribs in there. And now what I need to do is join these last 3 pieces. You can see the stripe right here where I have not applied any materials, left it open, and down here you can see where I've left it open. So now the first step is to put in some gel coat and then reinforce these areas so it doesn't crack later on. I finished the patch. Started out with some fairing compound that I made from epoxy resin and Cabosil. It's a filler to make a paste to go down in the gap between these 2 areas, right down in here. That goes between this area and that way. And made sure it had a nice smooth transition from one side to the other. And then put down 4 layers of 6-ounce carbon fiber right down the middle. Got a nice bonding on that. I also put in a couple of little stretchers here. If you can see this one that goes across here, the one that goes across there, just to make sure it just never pulls apart. And I also bonded this area in exactly the same way. So, my main panel is all put together. And that means Today is the big day when I pull it out of the mold and see if it's going to work. Here we go. Getting ready to pull the molds off the body panels. There's a lot of screws. There's a screw about every 6 to 8 inches around this mold, so it does take a while to take them all off. A power driver makes quick work of it. But there are a lot of them. Now just giving it some percussive love with my hammer, breaking it loose. Oop, forgot a couple of screws there. Banging it again, banging it good and hard. Okay, first piece off. The piece that gives me access to my front suspension. You see those inside panels going along. I drive those plastic wedges in, and there's the first sight of it. Oh, there's my covert in crime. You see it's starting to come loose there. Working with it, and off it comes. No issues so far. Driving in my wedges all the way around the edges. That one pops off. Now you can see the two back parts. Now driving the front half apart. You see it's coming apart pretty easily here. No issues. That section comes off. Driving it in, and the bottom cowl, and there it is. So that was the front part of the body. Now the rear part of the body. You see going through the same process here, unscrewing all the screws. Lots of screws. And so I put the wedges in. Give it a little percussive love there with a rubber hammer. Up, off it comes. You can see the first part of the body starting to emerge. Now the rest of the screws along the back. Now putting in the plastic wedges, driving it all apart. Bang it in there. Oh, it came right off. That one came off. It came right off. There it is. So here's the body, fresh out of the mold. Actually, I'm overall pretty happy with it. You can see my color scheme coming out here. But with every project, there are some things that turn out well and some things you need to work on. Overall, my seams came out really well. I mean, they are right on. Once I sand off this seam, they are just perfectly aligned. So all those alignment keys I put in the mold really paid off. Overall, the body's in pretty good shape. I do have some spots on it where the gel coat came off. You can see, but these are things, I never expected this to be my final finish. And I do have a couple places like this actually where the material actually didn't come up quite in contact with the gel coat. It left a gap, so I'm gonna have to build this back up with some filler, but it's, you know, it's pretty thin what I need to do there. Around the front, you can see the seams again, and places here where the gel coat came off. But like I say, I never expected it to be perfect. I am gonna paint it. Coming around, you can take a look. Overall, it's really, I'm really very pleased and how it overall turned out. This is just the edge is going to come off. I need to trim this down yet, but in the line I'm going to trim to, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So, first thing I did, of course, was to weigh it. After all, my again, my priorities were strong body, lightweight, try to keep the cost reasonable, and last priority was my labor because that part's free. So the body, this is the main part of the body here, and it weighs 23 pounds. So I am very happy with that. That's very, very light. And the rear part of the body weighs 12 pounds for an overall weight of 35 pounds. And I've got to say, I'm pretty happy with that. I was hoping for around 30, but I'll take 35.